Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you tonight in the heart of the mountains. Tonight is about remembrance, reflection, and also resilience, as we mark 1 year since Hurricane Helene brought devastation to this region. We have a powerful and meaningful program in store for you tonight, which will begin shortly. But first, I'd like to set the stage a bit and tell you who's bringing you together. My name is Shannon Bowen. I'm the founder and CEO of UNC Local. We're a new nonprofit news organization that exists because of communities like yours. And our mission is twofold. We're delivering public service journalism about statewide issues, especially decisions being made in Raleigh, to help people like you here in Western North Carolina understand how you're impacted, understand how to make sense of those decisions and statewide issues here in your daily lives in your communities. And we also strengthen local news across our state by working in collaboration and supporting existing local newsrooms, filling coverage gaps, and amplifying local voices. For more than 2 years, as we planned NC Local, we were listening here in Western North Carolina and across the state. Tonight is both an introduction and an invitation. NC Local is here as a resource and as a partner to shine a light on issues that matter to you, and we'll keep working in collaboration with our news partners here today to help you continue to navigate rebuilding and recovering. And collaboration is at the heart of all that we're doing. We're honored to be joined tonight by more than a dozen other local newsrooms and community organizations, including Ash Vegas, The Assembly, Beacon Tribune, Blue Ridge Public Radio, Buncombe County Special Collections, Carolina Public Press, Mountain Express, Charlotte Observer, Enlace Latino NC, Asheville Citizen Times, Smoky Mountain News, the News and Observer, and others. We're also deeply honored to have here with us tonight Dean McKay, former executive editor of The New York Times and now leader of the Times Local Investigative Fellowship Program. Dean's presence is especially meaningful. He grew up in New Orleans, a city shaped by Hurricane Katrina 20 years ago this year. These disasters may change communities forever, but they also reveal something profound. The stories of hope and resilience we'll hear tonight show us that even in divided times, the power of community can unite us. This evening is also made possible thanks to two supporters who care deeply about this region and information needs, Dogwood Health Trust and the Appalachia Funders Network. We're so grateful for their generosity and for all of you being here tonight. With that, I am delighted to introduce my colleague, Laura Lee. Laura is our editorial director for NC Local, and she'll lead our statewide newsroom and our initiatives right here in Western North Carolina. Many of you know her from her time at Blue Ridge Public Radio, leading the newsroom through the storm last year. And I can't think of anyone else better to guide our reporting and our connection here to you all tonight. Laura?
Always have a height problem. Thank you so much, Shannon. Welcome to everybody. It's so exciting to have you here. Before we get started, I wanted to tell you that anybody who knows me will tell you that my public speaking is about 99% off the cuff. Don't get nervous, Shannon. I rarely write things down, but I did today because I've been thinking so much about what I wanted to say. And I keep coming back to this moment that I had in October of last year. It was late October. I had a dear, dear friend's 50th birthday party in DC. And even though we were still unable to shower here, didn't have water here, I hopped on a plane for a couple of days. So I'm standing at a cocktail party, beautifully lit, twinkling lights in the backyard, and making small talk as you do. And this gentleman said to me, "So where are you from?" And I said, "Asheville." And he got that look, that look I'm talking about? It's curiosity, like a little pain, some pity, some sympathy, and He said, "How is it?" And I'm rarely short for words, but I didn't know how it was. How do you wrap up all that had happened, all the feelings, all the experiences? There wasn't a good answer. And I've realized in the time since then that part of the way we make meaning is to tell our story and to listen to each other's stories. So I'm especially grateful that you joined us to do that here tonight. I don't know that at the end of this, we're gonna have a concise answer to that. How is it? But maybe we'll get a little closer to understanding how it is for ourselves and how it is for each other. So that's my invitation for you tonight. We're gonna start with Michael Hayes, who's the founder of the Umoja, Health, Wellness, and Justice Collective in Asheville. It's a Black-owned grassroots nonprofit that teaches resiliency, builds community, and uses peer-based recovery to disrupt generational trauma and incarceration. And he's going to lead us with a reflection.
Good evening, everyone. I want to make sure that I'm intentional with what I'm getting ready to say, but I wanted to take a moment, first of all, just a moment of silence to recognize those who own this land first. Then I want to take a moment of silence for those who lost their lives on this land during Hurricane Helene. Thank you. So, please forgive me, but I just want to reflect on just a few things. This morning I got up, and I get up and I take my daughter to school, to make sure my sons catch the bus. But this morning I got up, and the first thing I do is I brush my teeth, I shave my head, it's bald, there's no hair up under this hat. And I got up under the shower of hot water. And I started crying because I remember during the storm, it was 28 days before I had a shower. From the beginning of the storm to the time we got into the community to make sure the community had what they had, it was 28 days. And because I had to do this today, I don't know what it was, but just that reflection of hot water in the shower. And on that 28th day was the first day that I cried about the destruction of Hurricane Helene. Because when you do community work, your first thought is to get up and start helping. So immediately after the storm, we were out in the community, loading up what we could. We had Ingles with $80 worth of change that they said they wasn't gonna take. And my wife said, "Yeah, you gonna take this change." Getting supplies for those that were in our neighborhood. But then the most beautiful thing happened. People started rallying together to make sure their neighbors, the people across the street, started making sure everybody was okay. And I must say that was the most beautiful thing. That was the most beautiful time in my life. And I'm 58 years old. And as I reflect on that to where we are today, I know we're celebrating loss. And I pray that everybody here will give your neighbor grace, because some tears might flow. We'll give your neighbor grace that's sitting beside you right now, because they might get triggered by a picture. I'm gonna tell you the best thing that you could possibly do. Look at them eye to eye and let them know that you're connecting with them. Let them know that you have their back tonight, just as we had it a year ago when community was serving community.
That's right.
Because tonight we're gonna need that. And I'm gonna tell you, to be honest with you, we're gonna need that from this point on. We have to start seeing each other as human beings from this moment, because last year should have taught us something. So I freely let my tears flow, like I let them flow in the shower, because I lost friends. I lost people that cared about the mission that we were on, that we're still on. But I gained a lot of friends. I gained community members that had no idea what Umoja was, that had no idea we existed. But we got to get out and do the work, and we did the work together. So today, tonight, as we reflect together, be in connection with one another, support one another. If you see somebody get triggered, just go over, maybe, put a hand on the shoulder, let them know that you're with them. But that support is gonna always be needed. And I pray that we get through this together as we continue on this journey together, because it's gonna take a long time and a lot of healing. I can honestly say this, I love you all and I'm glad to see you here tonight. God bless you.
I failed to say earlier, I'm sorry that there are headsets if you need interpretation in the back of the room. Thank you so much for those words. That means a lot. I wanted to also note that the music you're going to hear throughout tonight is from the residence sessions, which were recorded at the Old Marshall Jail. Some of you may be familiar with those recordings. So you're going to hear that throughout the night. So I want to bring up in just a second our first guest, who is the Black Mountain Fire Department Chief, John Coffey, who has been a firefighter and a paramedic and a law enforcement officer for about 3 decades. I also learned tonight had a few other careers, which you can ask him about later, that happened before he went into those careers. So he was the former chief of the Riceville Fire Department and then took over as the Black Mountain Fire Chief in 2022. He's going to be in conversation with Jason Sanford, who I know is a name familiar to many of you, a longtime Asheville native and longtime Asheville reporter, editor, and runs the Ash Vegas, Substack newsletter, and has just been an incredible resource for so many of us in the journalism community, especially in the aftermath of the storm. So with that, I'd like to bring up Jason and Chief Coffey.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you all for being here tonight. I'm just going to jump right in because we're going to try to keep a strict schedule. And I want to talk to Chief Coffey tonight. This is, by the way, is not a really rehearsed conversation. We met once about a month ago to talk, and we're just going to kind of, like Laura, do it a little off the cuff. But I really, Chief, want you to help us understand what it's like to be a first responder in a catastrophe like this. So if you could start by painting a picture of what was happening in Black Mountain as the storm hit and then perhaps passed, to just kind of set the scene, describe how cut off it was, and maybe if you could recall that moment when you really realized this is not like anything we've ever seen before.
So everything we prepared for past experiences. I was still on the truck. I wasn't in a position of leadership in 2004, but I was a firefighter during the storm that came through in 2004 that did a lot of damage. Did damage to the water system, no power for a week, but that was only a week. And at that time, we thought that was probably the worst thing that we had seen in this area. So as we were preparing, we kept thinking, all right, this is gonna be like 2004. So we ramped up our capabilities, like preparing for 2004, and we were confident. We're like, we've got this. That we're not gonna let 2004 happen again. But then on the 25th, we were going door to door, telling people in the regular areas where we knew it would flood based on historical data, and was telling those people they need to evacuate. And then on the 26th, after that first storm that came through and it dropped 9 inches of rain, we started rescues before the hurricane even got here. And then we had called for additional resources prior to, so 2 days prior to that, we had a team from Crystal Coast. So I had an extra 12-man water rescue team in Black Mountain for the Black Mountain and Swannanoa area. And then that morning, it was something I've never seen before. I was outside. We had set up an EOC at the fire department. We lost power. Our generator flooded in the basement, so we had no power. Communication towers went down. Power, everything was gone. It was completely black in Black Mountain. And I got on the radio, it was still working at the time, and I asked emergency management that I needed more personnel, and they said, there isn't anybody, and we can't even get to you if we could try. I was like, what do you mean you can't get to us? And they're like, and I was talking to an individual, and she said, John, you're on an island. You are completely surrounded by water. And I didn't believe her. And while I'm watching oak trees, 100-foot oak trees bend like palm trees, I've never seen anything like that in our area before, and I didn't believe her. And like an idiot, I got in the car by myself, which you should never do in a disaster like that, but I had to see for myself, and I went to all 4 directions. Went past elementary school, there was a raging river going through where there's this restaurant, Lake Guacamole, that was underwater. Went out by the interstate. I was cut off before you could even get to the interstate. There was a raging river there. Went out towards Ingles Warehouse, raging river. And then I even tried to go to Montreat because we had, there's a police department in Montreat and some people in there we tried to get to. And there was even a river through that. We were on an island. There was no way out of Black Mountain, and let alone all the trees that were down. And the wind, I've never seen rain or wind like what we've seen.
Chief, I'm gonna play a clip from a reel that the town of Black Mountain produced about the storm and the response. And so this is using body cam video and other video that is really gonna jump you right into what it feels like to be on the front lines. And I wanna ask you a couple of questions about it, but if we could play this clip.
We have officially completed all extrication and rescue operations. We have reached 100% of the community.
So what was happening there, Chief? Where were you? What was that extrication?
That was one of dozens that were going on at one time.
Where was that?
Sorry, I had to look away from
Yeah,
the clip.
yeah,
So I honestly didn't see which clip it was. Was it?
It looked like you were crossing a stream or a river, and
So that was,
probably had a couple of dozen rescuers, it looked like.
yeah, that one was over near North Fork Road, where the North Fork Dam comes down and meets into the Swannanoa River. It was a mess.
One of the things that you had mentioned in our previous talk was confronting debris flow and landslides. Some 2,000 across our area have been documented, including 145 in Buncombe County alone, is what I've read or seen reported. Can you talk about confronting the massive piles of rock and mud and roots, and how do you deal with that?
we weren't expecting any of that. We weren't expecting landslides. And then when they were telling us that there was landslides everywhere, you didn't have to go far to see them. Highway 9 was cut off in so many sections from a landslide. And what we did is we just went on foot, went as far as we could on UTVs and ATVs. And then from that point on, we went on foot. There was a point where, we were trying to, 2 of the fire departments were cut off completely, Broad River and Guerin Creek. And the county had given rations and food to all the fire departments, but couldn't get it to those 2 departments. And I called the emergency manager and told them to get us their portions, because they said there was no way they could get to them. And I made my guys go up on foot and climb up the mountain and get it to them.
Chief, one other hallmark of this storm was misinformation, and in the minute we have left, can you talk about the panic that swept through Black Mountain and Swannanoa when rumor spread that Tree Dam was about to break? And actually in that Black Mountain video, you can hear a dispatcher tell people the dam is about to break, we need to get them out.
So that was a little bit of confusion. There was a lot going on. I wouldn't say it was misleading information. It was just inaccurate information. There was a dam bucket that broke as it was supposed to, believe it or not. It's a long story on how the dam system works, but it actually kind of did what it was supposed to do. But the thing is, it sent a surge of water down from North Fork heading right towards where we were rescuing people. And then at the last minute, I had to make a decision on pulling them out to stop them from the rescuers, from their rescue missions, or lose everybody. So we had to, I made the decision and pulled the rescuers out so we could continue our missions after.
Wow, that's incredible stories. Chief Coffey will be around. That is our time. Thank you all for listening, and thank you, Chief Coffey.
We're right on the river. We're just walking around and kind of seeing how different things look. We're talking about artists who will like set up in some of these galleries and try and sell their work. They'll have to just move to a different gallery or find somewhere else to go. Business owners will have to just find a new space. The coffee shop's back open, the bar's back open, both bars are back open. But I mean, there's still a lot of stuff that needs to come back, like the courthouse. I don't think the courthouse has even gotten started on yet. It was unthinkable for a town like this, where this is, to be destroyed by a hurricane, but like come together. You'd be surprised at what a small mountain community can do, what any community can do.
It's not near as pretty as it was, but they have done a lot of work on it, what it was. They still need to be a lot more. They just don't have the funds. And a lot of the kids, the playground's gone, and our local kids don't have any place close to play. That's hard on them.
What we had before was something called Kids Mountain, and it was 20 years old. It had to come down, and the number of people has tripled since they put up the new park. I've been down the slides myself, and it's first class.
The biggest thing is don't forget about us. You know, you look and it's just like everybody's kind of on their own now. You know, it's kind of like the funds ran out, this ran out, that ran out. And, you know, I understand that, but there's still a lot of places. We got years of work that still needs to be done here.
There's been a lot of restoration, a lot of help, and we need a lot more help, actually. What I feel right now, thinking about the anniversary, is gratitude, and gratitude for this beautiful area, that it is going to heal and it is going to be restored.
So many stories that we wanted to bring you tonight. We knew we would not be able to do all of them live, so you're going to see videos just like that one sprinkled throughout the evening. That was by Diamond Vences, who's from the Charlotte Observer, along with Zach Dennis. So thank you so much for putting that together and all the hard work by everyone who's worked on the video teams. These are all made by local reporters, local video teams. And I want to say a special thank you, including Diamond and Zach, but also Ariana Clackler and Ryan Cromer, whose videos you're going to see shortly. You know, as a journalist who works in words, I'm always really impressed and mesmerized by visual storytelling. And pictures can sometimes take you places that words struggle to. Especially true in the early days after the storm. I think a lot of the images that were difficult to send out because of the connectivity issues, but once they got out to the rest of the state and to the rest of the nation and to the rest of the world, really showed people outside of the region what we were going through. And some of those most captivating images were taken by our next guest, Travis Long. He's a sometimes Western North Carolina resident and a longtime photojournalist who's done some really incredibly beautiful work at the News and Observer. So please join me in welcoming Travis to the stage.
I've covered around 20 named storms during my career as a photojournalist. But Hurricane Helene, or really the remnants of it, was different. Not because of the wind, because of the water. Water doesn't just knock things down, it erases them. It carves its own path. It reshapes entire landscapes, and it leaves behind not just damage, but disconnection. In places like Swannanoa, Black Mountain, Clyde, Crusoe, Marshall, it was overwhelming. The roar of creeks and rivers that had grown into something else entirely. The thudding of helicopters overhead, the smell of mold hanging in the air. And at night, total darkness. No power, no streetlights. The kind of dark where you can barely see your own hand in front of your face. I based my coverage for the News Observer and the Charlotte Observer out of my home in Cherokee for 16 days. No electricity or running water for the first 9. I used a power inverter, electric lawnmower batteries, and a Starlink terminal to file my photographs. Some of the first images from the mountains from up here went out through that little signal. That's how I reached my editors. And it contributed to how the rest of the country started to see what had happened here. What stood out most in those early days wasn't just the destruction. It was the isolation. So many of these communities are tucked deep into valleys, between ridgelines. When the rivers rise, the roads disappear. And when the roads disappear, people are cut off from help, from each other, from everything. Sometimes just getting to a community was my biggest challenge. I'd forgotten how much I had come to rely on Google Maps. But what you're seeing tonight, these photographs, they're more than reminders of the trauma we experienced. They're stories of place, people who stayed, or people who had no choice but to rebuild right where the water came up and changed everything. There's one scene I still think about. A tractor trailer had been washed off the road down an embankment in Black Mountain. Folks figured out the truck was loaded with bottled water, so they opened the back. People started climbing in, just whoever was passing by, and they handed water to anyone who needed it. No questions, no system, just a chain of hands, giving what they had. Some might call it looting. I considered it resourcefulness in a time of unprecedented need. It looked like something out of a disaster film, but it also looked like something deeply human. The moment itself was local, real, ordinary, and extraordinary. I think it's easy when you don't live here to assume the story of a storm ends when the skies clear. For a lot of people in these mountains, the long part only began after the news trucks left. Living without power, without clean water, without a home, without a way to call your neighbor or check on your family, that's not inconvenient, it's dangerous, it's lonely. And in that traumatic moment, I saw some of the most generous acts I've ever witnessed. Even people who had lost everything still offered hugs and handshakes and shared their stories. About 5 days in, my neighbor up the road in Cherokee got her power back. She knocked on my door and said, "Come on, I've got hot water." I got to take a shower for the first time in 9 days. Did a little laundry, ate a hot meal. It's not the kind of moment that makes headlines, but it's the kind that sticks, because it reminds you we recover with each other. The photos you've seen tonight don't tell you that everything's okay. They're not meant to. They tell you this, that there's growth after ruin, that people stayed, that neighbors help neighbors, that roads are being rebuilt, that the lights came back on, at least for some. And there's still a long road ahead. And we can't forget the 108 people that lost their lives to Hurricane Helene in North Carolina alone. These mountains are some of the oldest in the world, worn down by water and wind over eons. The people who have lived here, sometimes for generations, have seen hard times before. They know how to hold each other up. I saw it, and I hope you did too. Ma'am.
Can you have an honest hope if you are well? Have you watched your 5-year plan become a joke? All the audience is looking bored as hell.
Thank you so much, Travis. You have an incredible eye. We're so lucky to have joined with all these different news organizations. You all may, if not in journalism, may not know that that isn't something that always happens. We can be a little bit of a competitive bunch. So it feels really special to have all of these sometimes competitors working together. We're also lucky because we have a partner who's not a news organization. It is the Buncombe County Public Library's Special Collections. And, you know, we say journalists write the first draft of history. And I'm so grateful that our friends at the library are helping preserve not only that draft of history, but the drafts of history written by so many community members through the project that you're about to hear about. So here to tell you about that is my very dear friend and former colleague, Lily Knepp, who is the senior regional reporter at Blue Ridge Public Radio. And she's going to talk with Emily Cadmus, who is a public historian working with the Buncombe County Special Collections, and tell you more about that project.
Thank you all so much for coming. I think we've talked a lot about just how many stories there are to be told during the days after the storm. And we wanted, and that's why we wanted to come and talk with you about the Tom Heller High Water Oral History Project. Emily, do you want to talk a little bit about what your role is in that project as a public historian?
Sure. Well, first of all, the project is community crowdsourced digital archive. So we do have an oral history component, but we also are collecting all kinds of digital materials. And I am the project coordinator for that project. So mostly answer emails, but I wear a lot of different hats trying to make the whole thing flow.
And the Special Collections Library has been keeping photos and archival material for a long time. That's how this project came about. We actually wanted to show you all a photo from to start off. And this is from the 1916 flood. So Emily, what about this photo made you all want to have the archive this way?
Well, the 1916 flood is probably the most well-documented historic weather event in Western North Carolina. It was also the largest flood until Helene happened. And we do have a lot of documentation about that event compared to a lot of other weather events. And so I think one of the main differences, well, there's a few differences between what we are doing now and what was done then. Mainly, most of these materials about the 1916 flood were kept in people's private manuscripts until they were long dead, and then they got donated to special collections. Go ahead, did you want to say something?
No?
Okay. And the other part about it is that most of what we have images of are the same bridges, the train station, a lot of landscape pictures. The time period we're coming out of the Industrial Revolution, a lot was a heavy focus on development, and people were interested in documenting the destruction of the town. But our archive, what we noticed, and you'll see, the community has mostly contributed pictures of people and how people were surviving and helping each other, and what people had gone through.
Yeah, so this archive, and they're also partnering with NC Local for this event they put postcards out at libraries across the region, and folks actually sent in their postcards of moments of gratitude that they had throughout the storm. So we're gonna read a couple of those at the end of this for y'all. We wanted to show you some of the pictures that Emily wanted to point out. So this is one of the images that has a couple of really human moments from Hurricane Helene. Emily, why did you want to pick these pictures?
Well, the first picture there of the community center, people are gathering donations to distribute, is pretty indicative of what's happening kind of all over our area. I personally did a fair amount of volunteering during that time with different organizations, and they all kind of had this really remarkable fluid system in order to get donations out to people who needed them, and they're all kind of remarkably similar in the way they operated. And the other is another pretty common scene of people just in the neighborhood in the midst of a pretty notable destruction with the tree on the house, but they are just having to exist so much in the moment and survive in the moment with their children, trying to make food, trying to just do with what they have at hand.
So these are just some of the pictures that are in the archive. Slide. There are also a variety of the Buncombe County briefings and some art as well. How do you talk about why it's important to save these pieces with just a minute left? You know, I think some people, their eyes kind of glaze over when you say oral history, but we're getting to hear a lot of these things tonight. It's not staying in a box.
I think that there is something really valuable about having a lot of historical information to reflect upon and contextualize your experience with. I think it can help us move through some kind of like catharsis and process a lot of the trauma that we all went through having this material collection. And I think also it will be valuable in terms of longevity, in terms of being able to prepare our community what to expect for when the next one comes.
And so we did just want to share two of the postcards with you. So Emily, you want to read this one first?
So this was contributed by somebody named Amy Sawyer, and this is a story that she wanted to share. She says her friend Anissa, who had power and a well, and so she had water, was kind enough to open her home to me a couple of days later so that I could take a shower and do some laundry and fill some water jugs. While she was out, I was sitting at her kitchen table after starting the first load of laundry, enjoying a bowl of delicious and nourishing kachari that LP had made for me on his way out the door. And I was feeling immense gratitude for my friend and my partner, both solid as a rock in their unwavering support. And then thud, a bird flew into the sliding glass door and fell to the ground. I stayed for a full 30 seconds, willing it to get up and fly away, and then I burst into tears. The depth of emotion that had been swirling below the surface for the past 2 weeks came bubbling over. I let the tears flow for a few minutes before I gently opened the door and walked up the porch, and the little bird, which is a pine warbler, hopped to his feet. Obviously a bit stunned, my energy shifted as I sat next to him, offering healing, energy, and loving words. I said, "You're okay. You're just stunned and in a bit of shock. All of us are, but you're okay, and we're going to be okay." I rubbed his head softly, and I told him he was beautiful and loved, and he hopped towards me, paused, and then flew away. My heart swelled and happy tears flowed this time. Hope was restored.
And this one is from Sarah from South Asheville. She said, I was 25 days into recovery from alcoholism when Helene hit. Recovery for me, both from the hurricane and from alcoholism, was made easier when our neighborhood came together after the storm. I'm grateful for the ways that we supported each other with laughter, generosity, and brute strength. I'm grateful that when my mind and body were needed to help my children and neighbors, I was clear-headed and strong enough to help. I think in some significant ways, my experience with Helene shaped the way that I have approached recovery from alcoholism. As I write this in March 2025, I am nearing 7 months of sobriety. And I've learned, as I did in the first days after the storm, that I can stay sober if I stay busy, help others, and ask for help, focus on what matters, and lean into my community for strength and hope. These are just some of the stories that are part of this archive, and we're able to keep more stories through this. Blue Ridge Public Radio has also partnered with the archive, and you're hearing some of the oral histories on the airwaves now as part of our anniversary coverage. So thank you all so much for listening.
It really is so great to have conversation about the community pitching in, because that really was such a critical part of, I think, almost a universal experience. Our next guest helped one community in particular, and that's the Spanish-speaking community, tremendously during the storm. Patricia Serrano is a Western North Carolina reporter for our partner Enlace Latino NC. She worked tirelessly, and I can say that because I got to witness that firsthand, to help Spanish-speaking communities across the region get connected to resources, the immediate aftermath of the storm. And then she has worked since then to talk about the ways that the Latino communities across Western North Carolina are working to rebuild. Patricia is originally from Argentina, but she has called Asheville home for the last 5 years. She is featured in an upcoming video you're going to see momentarily, but first she's going to join me on stage and share one of the gratitude postcards that we received in Spanish.
Hi, everyone. I have this postcard in Spanish, one. The postcard is about how important is the access, the language access. So I will read this in Spanish. It's Elaine Marquez. It's from Elaine Marquez. Quiero agradecer a Enlace Latino NC por el apoyo que le dieron a las comunidades latinas que no pudieron comunicarse por hablar otra lengua o por recursos en su comunidad que fueron muy duros para ellos, pero que Enlace Latino lo hizo fácil para ayudarlos y salir adelante como comunidad latina unida.
Patricia, you also worked with the Charlotte Observer on the video that we're about to see. Can you tell us a little bit about why you picked this subject?
Yes. As everyone knows, from the Latino community, for the whole community, but that's our focus. The stories for the Hurricane Helene are really hard. People is still recovering, and it's a really hard year for the Latino community. So we thought that it's important to show a story of resilience, a story with hope, and a story that shows the community is up and working together and building spaces for coming together as a community on the recovery. So that was the election.
Thank you. Let's take a look.
Quería preguntarte si sentís que hoy en este lugar es como un nuevo comienzo o algo que salió de esa crisis.
Sí, y mira, sin duda, para nosotros el hecho de llegar aquí nos da una enorme esperanza. Tierra Fértil es una cooperativa agrícola que arrancamos en 2020, que inició como una distribución de comida. Luego de empezar a hacer esa distribución dijimos, bueno, ¿por qué no mejor producimos nuestros propios alimentos? Y de ahí surgió la idea de crear una cooperativa
Estamos en una zona donde sí, el trabajo agrícola es una de las mayores fuentes de trabajo para la comunidad latina y muchas veces la comunidad latina sin un estatus migratorio, ¿no? Y que puede haber demasiado aprovechamiento o situaciones.
Sabemos que para muchos miembros de nuestra comunidad simplemente no es una elección, es una necesidad el vincularse con un sistema agrícola pues opresor, dominante y que de alguna manera destruye el medio ambiente y la vida humana.
Muchas veces aquí se promueve más el negocio individual, es decir, yo soy empresaria, yo soy negociante, pero no se impulsa el interés colectivo.
Todos enfrentamos un proceso de emergencia y de recuperación distintos. Y para mucha gente la recuperación fue prácticamente inmediata, ¿verdad? Después de un mes, pues hay gente que estaba viviendo otra vez en sus casas, rehechas, reconstruidas, pero esa es una de las cosas más traumáticas de estos procesos, pues de estas crisis y de estos fenómenos, es que el golpe es hacia todos, pero no todos tenemos la misma capacidad de recuperación. Y eso es algo que tiene que ver con la justicia ambiental, que tiene que ver con el hecho de que sí, todos nos vemos afectados, pero no todos tenemos los mismos recursos para salir adelante. Tu situación económica, tu posición social también determina tu capacidad para recuperarte.
¿Crees que tu etnicidad también determina tu capacidad?
Por supuesto, sí, por supuesto, porque no tienes acceso a los mismos. Y voy a decir no solo tema de etnicidad, sino que tiene que ver con tu estatus migratorio. Tu estatus migratorio puede permitirte o no acceder a ciertos recursos, a ciertos beneficios o incluso sentirte incluido en ciertos procesos. Queremos crear un espacio para nosotros, un espacio donde la gente pueda reírse, pueda sentirse segura principalmente.
Thanks again to everyone who worked on that video, and it's just great to see such an example of resilience. Our next guest met a community need that we haven't talked about yet, which is in the medical space. Amanda Watts is a registered nurse in Yancey County who set up a field hospital to treat residents and first responders in the immediate aftermath of the storm. Before Helene, Amanda, who I'm certain is going to heaven, worked with pediatric cancer patients and now works at a Spruce Pine nursing home. I mean, really just taking care of fellow human beings, and we're going to hear how she did that right after Helene. She's going to be in conversation with my friend and former colleague, Jacob Biba. Jacob started at the Asheville Citizen-Times just a couple weeks before the storm hit, though he has lived in Asheville for about 25 years. So please join me in welcoming Jacob and Amanda to the stage.
Thank you so much for doing this, Amanda. I think this week, for me personally, I'm thinking about a lot of the lives lost, the people still missing, but also the lives that were saved, and you played a huge part of that. So I just think we should all thank her for the work you did. So I know your husband's a paramedic, and you all have a scanner at your home. Could you kind of share with everyone here what you were hearing on the scanner that first day the storm hit?
Sure. We were really ill prepared to be a family that should have been very ready. I actually went and bought $600 worth of groceries at Sam's the night before because I thought we would be locked in for about a week, and that's what we would do. And we came in that night, and my husband kept saying, "I think it's going to be bad. I really think it's going to be bad." And I was like, "It floods every time there's a hurricane. We'll be okay." And as the night progressed, you could hear the voices on the scanner, and they changed. And then we lost power. Once we lost power, we still had this little radio that he wears on his side that runs by battery. So we could still hear the things going on. And I think that the moment that we realized how bad it was probably 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning, and we hadn't slept at all just because we were listening. And they brought all the rescue workers in. because it was no longer safe for them to be out. And at that point, we just looked at one another and didn't even say a word. And I was like, this is really bad. And it wasn't long after that that we lost complete communication.
So if you haven't been to Yancey County, it's a very hard place to navigate and access. After the storm, so many roads were washed out. Can you talk a little bit about traveling to the fire department where your father's the chief?
Sure. We live down 19W, which is down the Cane River, and we could not even remotely get to and access that direction. However, we were fortunate enough that we were in an area where there's a mountain that we can go across called Straunt's Creek. But the first 2 days, the next morning my husband went out. He was like, we're not getting out for a while. There's landslides. And he came back in for a few hours. He said they had some heavy equipment. They were trying to clear something. And these were people's personal equipment. This wasn't like somebody who had come to rescue. So several hours later, he went out and he was like, well, that landslide's gone. So we're going to go farther down in the side by side and see what it looks like. And he came back and he said, it's going to be a while. So we spent night 2 at home. Night 2 at home was even rougher than night 1. Because we had no communication and we didn't know what was going on. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, he calls it a toddler fit that I had. But I said, we're not staying here anymore. We could be helping somewhere. We're going to get out of here. I don't know how we're going to do it. We're going to get out of here. So he and my 15-year-old went out, and there were a couple of areas they were able to put rocks across the road. We did have to wait a few more hours for them to get some large boulders out of the road, and we were able to, what I call Hail Mary it out of there, because we took the 4-wheel drive truck. My 15-year-old drove the side-by-side on main roads all the way into town. But as soon as we got to the main road, he met EMS and got in with them, and I knew I had to get to my parents. That's where I needed to get to make sure they were okay. I knew they would be at the fire department because my dad's the fire chief. And so that's how we arrived at the fire department, was just for me to check on my parents.
How long did it take you to realize that you needed to start field hospital?
Field hospital is a really relative term. We started out thinking we needed to do a first aid station for the actual workers who were coming in and out of the fire department. It immediately became a hub. Every fire department all across the county was a hub because that's the only place people knew to come for help because there was no communication. So we set up in the museum of the fire department with a 1941 fire truck right in the middle of it. I had 2 tables, ibuprofen, a couple of first aid kits, and lots of people started to filter in. As that started to happen, I laughed at the video about the looting. We broke into the health department and stole everything that they had. We broke into doctor's offices and got everything that they had. So although it's comical, we were really searching for anything we could get to. EMS brought all of their supplies to the fire department because it became the actual hub for EMS, all the strike teams, all the fire departments that came in to help. We roughly fed 200 people 3 meals a day for over a month, maybe even longer than that. I could be wrong on the time on that. And those were all workers. They were strike teams, they were EMS, fire, and then the people who were in the field hospital.
And you worked there 40 straight days, right?
I didn't go home for 40 straight days. I will say I did go home and clean out my refrigerator one day for about 2 hours because I was afraid of the smell.
In this,
Go ahead. That was the longest 2 hours of my life because I needed to get back.
in those 40 days, is there a moment that really sticks out in your mind?
I think one of the hardest days was probably, you've seen probably a lot of pictures from Pensacola. We had an area that was really devastated. It had a huge landslide. We knew there had been fatalities there. I personally knew several of the people who lived through there, and we could not get to them. They were actually helicopter rescued. And it was 4 days before we were able to get them out. And one of the fellas that they brought in, he lost his wife. And he refused to leave until her body could be taken to. And that was a really hard day. It was very personal. And you know, you hear the term field hospital, and people would come to volunteer, and they really thought they were coming to amputate legs and do some major crazy medical thing. But you know, I would say the majority of our time, we saw a lot, we treated a lot. In fact, over 500 to 600 patients at last count. But we listened to a lot of stories, and we held a lot of hands, and we took care of whatever their need was. We tried to like holistically treat them while they were there. We made sure they had food. We made sure they had water. We made sure they had any resource that we had available to help them. And I quickly learned that when I would wake up every morning, there would be 40 volunteers there waiting, that I had to explain to them that if they were there thinking they were going to be a medical hero, then they might want to go ahead and leave. That sweeping the floor meant the world to me. Holding a hand, stacking a box, sorting through supplies. Everything that everybody did was important. It wasn't just the IV starts and the taking care of the patient. Sure, that was huge, but we needed everybody.
And we all needed you, and they needed you as well. Thank you so much for sharing.
I remember hearing them screaming in their attic. All these houses inside, it was just looked like a tornado hit, and then you added like that much mud on top of everything. It's pretty crazy. It was a camping trip with my friend on his kayaks. That kind of got me into it. A little bit before that, I almost drowned in a truck, flipping upside down into a creek. Maybe I got into it a little bit to combat a little bit of that PTSD, you know, like getting back on the horse type of thing. And it's an amazing sport. You form really close bonds with the people that you kayak with because your lives are dependent on each other.
Tell me a little bit about the way your morning started, September 27th.
I was sitting right here watching a surf wave form in the road right there. And then I saw the neighbor stealing my kayak. He said that there was little kids drowning. So I had to grab my boat and help them. It's all a blur. It's all a blur. The water was all the way up to the gutters. All the way down there, there was houses floating through. Insane, dude. I had my kayak and I paddled about, I don't know, 15 people maybe, and 5 dogs, with them holding on to the shore. I pretty much just started going up to people, saying, hey, you can wait this out on your roof and take a chance that your house will stay put. Or you can put the life jacket on, hold on the back of my boat, and I'll paddle you to shore. So I wanted it to be their decision because there's risk either way. With whitewater kayaks, you can't put the person in the kayak. It's too small, so they have to hold on to the back, and you just paddle them to the shore, and that's the only way I knew how to rescue people that day. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I get down there, I'm getting in my boat, I'm looking at the water, hearing all the noises. Yeah, I got a little bit nervous. But after I got that first lady to shore, I was like, okay, I can handle this, you know. There was a basketball hoop that the water was basically up to the basketball hoop. I don't have a very good memory at all. So that was like my landmark.
Oh, this is where you were pulling people out.
That was my landmark. I was getting confused. There's just, everything was so chaotic. I mean, I knew where shore was, it was over there, but I didn't know where like the people that were helping them were.
So you were literally bringing people back here and they would like scramble over the ivy and brush?
Yeah, Kim and all them were helping them up.
When did the day end for you?
The day ended for me when no one was left. We had left one of my kayaks up on the roof, and there wasn't a soul out there. That was pretty wild. I just sat there for a minute, took in the muddy mess. Yeah, but we made it. It was really nice right afterwards because I think that's one of the few times I've really truly felt like I was in a community. Politics didn't matter, and life actually kind of made more sense to me at that moment. We would go on scavenging runs, looking for water, looking for food. I'd help these guys set up their generator, help them do this, help them do that. And then at night we would all sit around a bonfire and have fun. And then that slowly faded as everyone had to go back to their jobs. And as things got back to normal a little bit, I kind of miss it actually. We're mortal. It's just a reminder that things don't last and we don't last. And to appreciate every day, every hour, every breath. It's been amazing the amount of work they've got done everywhere, everywhere around Asheville. I thought it would take several years before it looked this good. Still a lot of work to do, but I would say Western North Carolina is definitely healing.
Yeah, it's coming along nicely.
Just want to say a special thank you to John for sharing your story. We could give him a round of applause. I also want to thank our partners at the Assembly, especially Ren Larson, the reporter you saw, and the videographers again on this, Ariana Clackler and Ryan Cromer. It's really powerful to see the ways that people pitched in. I'm sure that's true for many of you. Can we just by show of hands, if you were part of a mutual aid or you helped hand out water, anything like that, can you just raise your hand? Yeah. Give yourselves a round of applause. So part of my little community at that time was my little news team, which I called the Feral Squad. It was a little bit feral in the tiny studio where no one has bathed. And a special member of that Feral Squad was the BPR. At the time, she was the Asheville Buncombe reporter. Now she is the Helene recovery reporter, Laura Hackett, who we call Lo because BPR had so many Lauras. And she's going to be here tonight in conversation with Philip Cooper. Philip is the founder of Operation Gateway, which is a nonprofit that supports criminal justice reform and the reentry of incarcerated community members. He's also a reverend and an award-winning community organizer, and helped run the Community Resources Center out of Asheville's Eddington Center. So help me welcome to the stage, Laura Hackett and Philip Cooper.
So great to be with you on the stage, Philip. For those who don't know, Philip has a nickname. He is known as the change agent. So I imagine he's been quite busy lately. Philip, can you talk to me a little bit about what that name, the change agent, means to you?
Yeah, so a change agent is a person who sacrifices to fight for the underdog. You know, the underdog can be someone from a marginalized community. It can be a person who has a voice that doesn't know how to use it yet. You know, the topic at hand, it can be an elderly lady who doesn't have the strength to flush her toilet with the bucket that somebody left on her porch. So it's a person that's going to sacrifice. I've seen many hands go up when it was like, who was a part of mutual aid? Those the change agents.
During Helene, you were doing a lot of change agenting, a lot of mutual aid work. You're out at the Eddington Center, right? Can you tell me, what are some of the things? I'm sure it was hectic, supplies coming in and out, a lot happening. What were the things you were focusing on? Who are you trying to take care of?
I like the word change agenting. I like that.
You can have it.
But it's crazy because there was so many people that was trying to help us from all over the country, and people just popping up with trailers full of supplies. And so for us, I partnered with the Asheville Housing Authority, and we turned the Editorial Center, which is a gym. They have the Asheville Peak Academy, which is a charter school there. We turned that into a distribution center. So we thought about, who was getting left out. So it was the residents of public housing. It was those who may have a Section 8 voucher, because we couldn't forget about them. And it was also people who was returning from incarceration and treatment, because believe it or not, people were still getting out of prison and brought to this area even during a hurricane. And so we could not forget about them.
I understand you were giving some people some work at the time too, right?
Oh yeah. So it was crazy too, y'all. Being a nonprofit executive, they had this what they call rapid funding, and people were sending us money, and I didn't even know I was there. I was in the middle of the gym, and my man had shared, I'm not gonna say it was fun, but the chaos coordination is what I was born for, And so while we was there, it was times I was so into it, and it was like living a dream. It was like a change agent's opportunity to change the world. And that rapid funding was sitting there, and we could do what we wanted with it. So there were people who had got laid off from their jobs, people getting out of prison, and we was burning volunteers out. United Way done a great job with their hands-on Asheville, but some of them older folks, that was the most physical activity they had done in a long time. And some people was bringing a trailer load full of water, and then we was hollering at my man Pastor Jason down from Highland Church down there at the Western Grant Center, because they had a forklift. One time we got a trailer full of water with no forklift. We burned out every single volunteer. But that funding availed us the opportunity to pay people day labor. So these were people who was fresh out of prison, who was now in community. They went straight from being an opus number, straight from being an inmate, to now being an immediate change agent that's carrying a wagon full of supplies for a lady, or going to somebody's house to flush a toilet, and it gave them purpose immediately.
It must have been what was the look on some of their faces, right?
Man, really they was happy, because coming from where I come from, I done been to hell already, fam. And for many of us, this was an opportunity for us to be the good guys. And they was grateful. And they was in community. And they felt a part of the community.
Beautiful. So in all of this chaos coordination, as you said, you learn a lot, right? You see people in a whole new way. What are some of the things that you learned about people during this natural disaster in Asheville, Western North Carolina?
So let me tell you something about FEMA, right? So what we learned about FEMA was a lot of them people that was working in them centers, they had just got their jobs. So they do just as much as we did. And so what I did learn was that Episcopal Legal Services could train our peer support specialists and community health workers to do FEMA applications. So y'all remember that 750? Y'all know that 750. Yeah, y'all know that 750. And so we learned how to do the serious needs assistant applications, and Episcopal Legal taught us how to do it. They also taught us how to do appeals. And so we was leveraging folks who was in recovery, who had a certain credential, to help folks with their applications and their appeals. And what I also learned was technology is a barrier even in a natural disaster. Some people, they was asking this elderly lady to log into her AOL.com email to get a verification code. She don't remember the password. You know what I'm saying? And so what I learned was technology is a barrier even in a natural disaster.
Yeah, my mom calls that password hell. So, facts. That's important work. There's nothing more maddening than when you're just trying to get the help you need, and it's a code or a number, and it's a lot of work right there.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. They got used to seeing me out there at them disaster recovery centers, the DRC. Some of y'all remember when they came to Asheville Mall? When they came to Asheville Mall and set up, it was a wrap. We was there all the time. And like I say, the people that was working on the front lines, some of them had just got their jobs. So we was starting to load more than they was.
So how did all this work? How did Helene change the way that you look at your community, your neighbors?
Well, I will say there's a resilience that comes from these here Appalachian Mountains. I got generations of my daddy from West Virginia, coal country, my mama from like Cleveland County, Rutherford County area. And so I've been in Asheville for a long time. And it's a resilience that we have, and I got to see that with my community. And like my man say, I got to meet him, man, that was on that video, because seeing the community come together the way it did, man, because a lot of people move in silos. Y'all know we got so many nonprofits here in Asheville, North Carolina, and sometimes it's that crab in a bucket mentality, you dig? But whenever the hurricane hit, you see, man, we had executive directors beside each other doing work together. Like I had my sister Jess from Read to Succeed, her and Michaela from Impact Health, coordinating hot meals. I seen people coming together in ways, just using whatever skills you got, bring them. You know what I'm saying? No matter what your title is. And that's what I miss that. I miss that.
I think even today, even a year out, you have so much energy. You have it seems like you are charged by helping others. I found it really inspiring. I'm sure our community also really appreciates it. I'm wondering, what keeps you going? How do you stay positive the way you are,
Gotta keep my tank full. My spiritual condition. I love the Lord Jesus. That's my favorite tradition. And I gotta keep my cup filled. I stay prayed up. I listen to my worship music. I remember that it's something bigger than me, and I'm a part of something way bigger. I can't never let it be anything other than or be egotistical. And people who are egotistical, you can't sustain that. So doing it with a pure heart, and that requires taking care of my spiritual condition.
I called you yesterday. You were in the middle of a nap. So also not outside.
Jesus took naps. Be like Jesus.
On the subject if I
Both of us have been bartending our entire adult lives, and it all kind of happened pretty quickly that we decided to open up a bar. We did it, and for those 32 days, it was actually really cool.
It was off to just a really fun start. People were loving it. Everyone seemed to be having a really good time in there.
We actually flooded on Wednesday, and then the next day we drove down there, we went in. Davey even made a video and he was like,
"We needed this rain."
We needed it, we really needed this rain. Thinking that, that was it. It kept raining. And then we realized that the cameras cut out. We got in there and that's when we were like, oh, it's gone. We're alive, our pets are alive.
Our house is
house
okay.
is fine. It's just, our business is destroyed.
So tell me a little bit about helping out the community.
Because of the New York Times interview, we gained all of these thousands of followers.
Well, the bar's gone, and now we have all these people, and let's make it about the hurricane and what we're doing.
We created an Amazon wish list of items to donate, and I ended up having to cut it off because we were getting so much donations sent to our house that you couldn't even get in our front door. There was just so many people in Eastern Tennessee, Marshall and Hot Springs, even deeper into the woods. Anything that we were getting donated was leaving Asheville.
You ended up on the Jennifer Hudson show. Tell me about that. Did Jennifer herself call you?
Jennifer Hudson, to be clear, did not call me. I do not have her phone number. For that episode, when we ended up going on it, we were the good news story because, there were so many horrifying things that happened to people.
It felt great, but it felt
bad. It just felt weird.
It felt both,
Yeah.
It felt like we need to
It's
get
we
this
don't
done.
deserve this any more than anyone else.
Yeah.
But we had to embrace it and turn that into how we could help the community. After the hurricane happened and we all came together, and it was not about who you were voting for, it was about who needed help. I think it's important that we carry that with us forever
And anytime, we're thinking about how people may live their life differently, we have to think about how when they're in need in the same way you would be in need if you were in their situation. It's interesting to see how people, when they have the time, they do want to help and make things better, and to try to work that into your life somehow. Like make a little space for that, because it is important and it feels good to help people. In one of the interviews, I said, "Oh, we're coming back." And then someone created a GoFundMe for us, and I was like, "Oh, they want us to come back." We opened here in May, our new location. In under a year, we opened our first business, we lost our first business, then we reopened our second business 4 times the size. So it kind of all happened really quickly. It definitely is like that 70s fever dream, and now it's even on a grander scale, which is really fun to play with. Opening day was wild, packed. Generally, it was just excitement and happy, and we have had some moments by our memory wall, that it kind of gets people sometimes and brings them back to the hurricane. We want this to become like a hub where people come and feel safe and they hang out and they relax, and we've been able to give back and it feels really good.
Thank you to Sarah Murphy and Beacon Tribune for that great video. So many powerful stories. Storytelling is just part of the experience, though. Music is a key way that we express our emotions, that we process some of the things that have happened to us. I think that's especially true in Appalachian history. It's particularly true in times of tragedy. And our last pair of guests includes another person that I'm lucky to call a friend, Mountain Express managing editor Thomas Calder. Thomas is also an author. Thomas has more hours in his day than the rest of us do, apparently. And Donna Ray Norton, who is an eighth generation ballad singer from Madison County. Please join me in welcoming Thomas and Donna Ray.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for coming out, and thanks everybody for sharing your stories tonight. It's been really amazing. I just want to begin with talking to Donna Ray, who I've known for a while now. Take us back to the first time you drove through Marshall after the storm with your friend and colleague, Josh Colas.
So, that was very loud. So the first day that we went back into Marshall, I just had this feeling, like I needed to be in town with my people. And so Josh was like, I'll take you in because you're going to need somebody to be with you when you first come through. And so he's like slowly driving me down the road into Marshall. And he's like trying to prepare me for what we're about to see because this is my hometown. This is a big city where I'm from. And so we're driving down this road and there's this truck that pulls up on our bumper, and this guy just starts honking and yelling out his window, and he's like, this isn't a sightseeing, this is not for tourists, and you need to get out of the way, and this and that, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm already terrified of what I'm about to see, but I'm an emotional disaster myself. And so I'm kind of looking at Josh and I'm like, what's about to happen right now, And how could this be happening in this moment? I'm an 8th generation ballad singer from Madison County. And Josh is a business owner in downtown. And that guy's like, get out of the way, and Josh just kind of leans out the window and he's like, we don't need that kind of energy down here, bro. And the guy says, get out of the way. I'm trying to help the people here. And Josh says, we are the people here. And I was like, of course, this would be how I come into town on the first day. And so I get into town, and it was just, I have lots of words all the time. I have lots of things to say. And I just could not even find words to say about anything. And it's still hard for me to see these videos, and I'm kind of hating I'm going last because I've been emotional all evening. But yeah, it was definitely just very hard to see that because I'm from here. I've been all over Western North Carolina, and just to see it like that was crazy. And that mud, just seeing the images of those people shoveling that mud, I did that, the week after the hurricane hit, and it was slippery and it was heavy, and I'll never forget that smell.
Yeah.
And talk to everyone too, just about your relationship to ballot singing, kind of how has it changed since Helene?
So I've been doing this for, since I was 15 years old, and I knew what was happening, and I knew what gift my family shared, but I really didn't understand it, I think, until after the hurricane hit, because so many people sort of leaned into that raw, real thing. It was like that was what they wanted, in that moment. And the same thing kind of happened after COVID. And because during COVID, what happened? People wanted to start growing their own food, and they wanted to build their own things and make their own bread, and get back to the root of things. And I feel like what's more rooty than ballad singing? It's definitely one of the main veins in like modern music. Still to this day, it's one of the main things. And so my family shares one of the oldest unbroken non-indigenous traditions in the United States. And so it just was, how long have these ballads survived here in these mountains? And there's a reason for that, because, the people here are resilient, and that's the sort of thing that we leaned on. And music was the thing that brings people together. So.
Yeah. And you were part of the resident sessions. So Josh Kopis owns the Marshall Jail, and Donna Ray was one of dozens of artists who recorded in the jail. And you've just got an amazing story about your specific recording session and a special guest who showed up. And I'd love for you just to share that with everybody.
So, I knew that we were going to be down there. It was me and a handful of the ballad singers that perform with me each month at the Old Marshall Jail Hotel and Zadie's Restaurant. And we do a ballad swap there the second Wednesday of every month. And we had gone down into the jail to record our part for the resident sessions, and I was the last ballad singer to record that day. And Josh Stein had been in town, and this was before the election. Josh Stein had been in town, and we had already met him in the street, shook hands and all that. And Josh Kopis comes over to me, and he's like, Donna Ray, what if I can get Josh Stein to sit in on your session? And I was like, I don't know, that feels really weird. I practiced a new song, and I'm on board if I mess up, and I'll just die like I can. And he was like, you're gonna do fine. And I was like, no, I really don't. And he was like, well, figure it out. I'm gonna go get him. He's coming back over, and we're coming in, and we're gonna do it. And I'm like, okay. And so I had practiced this song about resilience, and was called Camp a Little While in the Wilderness. And then I got up there, and here is Josh Stein sitting in on my session, because he did actually come back. And I opened my mouth, and the ballad "Fine Sally" came out. So I sang a murder ballad on the resident sessions. And so that's why you'll hear that song there on the album. And I thought I was going to get a do-over or something, but I'm not, unfortunately, because it felt good and it was okay. And as soon as I got done singing it, Josh Stein comes over to me, and he was like, girl, you just did that. And I gave me a big old hug, and I just immediately started sobbing. And because I hadn't showered, it's been days and days, and I told him the story of the 1916 flood, which is actually printed on the bricks behind where I was standing. Right there. It's printed on the bricks right behind where I was standing, and I was telling him about it because right after that flood, my great-great-great-aunt Mary Sands sang over 25 ballads for English folklorist Cecil Sharp when he came through the mountains in 1916. And so I was telling him that story, and I invited him to a ballad swap, and I said, and when you get elected, not if, but and when you get elected, I think you should have some musicians from Western North Carolina perform at your inauguration, and maybe even a ballad singer or two.
Do tell us about the inaugural.
Yeah, so, and then in January, I got an email from his people. Well, no, it was before January, but I actually did get invited to perform at his inauguration.
Less than a minute before you're going to perform, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share again people with everyone here about the ballot swaps and how folks can continue the awareness you're raising about the ongoing needs in Washington.
So I got the idea to tour the ballot swap after, after the hurricane, because we had lost our home for the swap, which again is at the old Marshall Jail Hotel and Zadie's Restaurant right in downtown Marshall. And so we traveled the ballot swap around all over the place, even to Canada, talking to people about the support Western North Carolina is going to need as a whole for a very long time. Like, and even, like reopening and staying open are two different things, So, that's what I've been using my voice for. One of my friends said, "Donna Ray, honey, you ain't no spring chicken. Why are you down there doing that man's work? You need to use your talents and help that way." And I was like, "Yes, sir." Now, if it had been any other day, I might have hit my way.
And on that note, I want to thank you again for taking the time to speak to us. And Donna Ray is going to end the night for us with a performance.
So I thought about singing you guys a song about resilience, but then I thought, I'm going to sing you guys the song that I sang for Josh Stein. And this song's called Fine Sally. And I learned this from Caswell, and he was a wonderful ballad singer from over home. And if you don't know what a ballad is a story told in song, and a traditional ballad is always done unaccompanied. So, and as my nanny would call it, that old hollering. I don't know why you want to go do that old hollering, no way. So I'm going to holler for y'all and hold on to this microphone so I don't pass out. There was a rich lady from London, she came. Fine Sally, fine Sally, fine Sally was her name. And she had more money than a king could possess. Her neatness and her beauty was worth all the rest. There was a young doctor who lived nearby, and it was on this fair maid that he casted his eye. Controlled by her beauty, he held her most dear. He's courted her truly 1 day plus 1 year. One night as they pleasured, he fell to his knees, crying, "Sally, oh Sally, won't you marry me?" She said, "I don't hate you, Willie, none or no other man, but to say that I love one is more than I can." He clumb on his horse and away he did speed, crying, "Sally, oh Sally, you'll pay for this deed. I'll curse you, Sally, all the rest of my days, and never forgive you for your lying ways." Fine Sally took sick and she knowed not why. Her chambers all thought that she surely would die. They called for the doctor for the want of a cure, for pain and her misery could not be endured. Up rode the young doctor, to her bed he drew nigh. Her chambers all parted and moved to the side. "Is that you, Willie? My side it grows dim. I fear for my present, and my future seems grim." says, yes, I am the doctor, can cure or can kill. But to say I forgive you is more than I will. Then damn your soul will you can be on your way. For beg you for mercy is not in my sway. From often her fingers pulled diamond rings 3, says here is your token to remember poor me. And as you dance on my grave, sir, shed not no tears for me. Just remember you're a dancing on Sally, your queen. Fine Sally.
Just realizing what an impossibly hard job. Every single act I have to follow. I know there are several politicians in the room because I can look out and see you. And you know, one of the cardinal rules, the politicians will know this, of an event like this is that you do not start thanking people by name because you will inevitably forget someone. But I'm going to ignore that wisdom because there are a few people that we need to thank as we close out the night. First, I want to thank our presenting sponsors, Dogwood Health Trust and Appalachian Funders Network. If we could give them a round of applause, please. Console Language Justice Cooperative provided Spanish translation. Thank you to them. Carolyn Small and Crystal Bradley are ASL interpreters this evening. UNC Events and Facilities staff, Robert Straub and Hallie Carter, as well as UNC. We're so lucky to be part of this post-Helene Symposium. I don't know if you know, there's just incredible events going on all day today, all day tomorrow, all day the next day. Special thanks to Professor Bill Beers who put all that together, and Alex Severe. Let's give them a round of applause. We received in-kind support from Spicewalla and Open Hearts Art Center. I don't know if you've seen the beautiful paper bouquets. Our videographer is Dore Wen of Wen Media. Volunteer AV support from JT Nebecker and our volunteer photographer, Jenny Bowen. We could give all of them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Finally, I want to thank our community storytellers and our event partners, Asheville Citizen Times, Ash Vegas Hot Sheet, The Assembly, Beacon Tribune, Blue Ridge Public Radio, Buncombe County Special Collections, Carolina Public Press, the Charlotte Observer, Enlace Latino in North Carolina, Mountain Express, the News and Observer, and the Smoky Mountain News. I personally want to thank my colleagues, Shannon Bowen, who you heard from earlier, and Una Kelly, who helped make this night possible, and 2 people who have just worked so many hours behind the scenes. If we could please give a huge round of applause to Catherine Comp and our event coordinator, Chelsea Naughton. Both of whom want to come here right now. And it's truly a special kind of herding cats for herd journalists. So thank you both so much for all the work that you've done over these last few months. Thank you all for sharing in this evening with us. I'm so grateful that we've had this opportunity, and take care of yourselves and each other.